was one of those moments that I will never forget for as long as I live, watching him rip around a dirt track on a TZ 750. So, Kenny Roberts.
Thank you.
Speaking of the TZ 750, hi everybody. I'm glad you're all here. It's a great privilege for me and Kevin to be in the company of Mr. Kenny Roberts.
In the presence.
And I know he's talked about this to death, but still, there are still some questions I'd like to ask him about the TZ 750 dirt tracker. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of the complete story. Kenny showed up in Indianapolis in 1975 with that thing. And at the time, and I think to this day, that was the most dramatic, death-defying dirt track race in the history of racing in the United States. So the first question is, whose idea was it? Who built it? And what did you think of it the first time you saw it?
Doug Swarma built it.
Sorry?
Doug Swarma.
Swarma.
And so I rode most of his stuff through his career. And they told me what they were doing, and I just said, you guys are nuts. It's not going to work. And they just pursued it. And the first time I saw it was at the start. It was parked in the practice line at Indianapolis. I never tested it, never started it.
Jesus.
So there's 4 of them in the practice line. I said, wouldn't that be funny if this thing don't turn and we all just make a big hole? and I remember the first lap, I had it in 5th gear, coming out of turn 4, and it's spinning, of course, and I jerked up on it and it just went straight in the air. And I went, oh man. And it was the points where it was, okay, don't go either way, it's gonna come down. So yeah, that was pretty exciting. And it's a fun motorcycle to ride. The problem is getting that lap time, because the lap time would vary a second and a half a lap just on the amount of wheel spin.
Yeah. So you won that race. The last second charge, there's been film that we've all seen. We've seen pictures, we've seen film of that thing on the edge of out there on the edge of the cushion with the back tire kicking straw out of the straw bales. So time goes by. There were other big 750 two-stroke dirt bikes that were out there. Kanemoto built some, I think. Scott Brailsford had one. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
There was 3 cylinders. Okay.
The 3 cylinders,
that Herb built, yeah.
So time goes by, and now it's what, 1996, 2006, when you revisited Indy. So we had a brief conversation at the time when you showed up for that. Kenny reprised his great win with a demonstration couple of laps at the same racetrack in Indianapolis, Mile, some years later. And again, I wasn't there in '75, but I was there for that. And the grandstands were absolutely packed, and it was the most electrifying performance. It was just a couple of demonstration laps is all it was. So Kenny gets on this beast, and they started up, and you think there's going to be some kind of foreplay. There wasn't any. We gassed the thing up and shifted into whatever gear, and off we go into turn 1 with the back end stuck out in the dirt and dirt flying into the grandstands. It didn't sound like he let off the power for 2 laps. Earlier he said, I just need to keep this thing out of the groove, meaning if this thing gets into where the good traction is, there's going to be trouble. So he's cruising around the outside of this Blue Groove racetrack, and it is the most compelling thing I've ever seen. People were collapsing in the grandstands. It was not only dramatic, it was very emotional. People were expecting some kind of maybe slightly calm performance from this guy. They got the full 100% KR show. It was absolutely stupendous, electrifying. Some of us may have been on the edge of tears. I was not on that, but it was a great show. Did you enjoy any of that?
Yeah, like I said, it's a fun bike to ride. And the funny part of it was Ray Abrams built that bike. And it actually, this one's a little bit different. And he said, well, okay, you got 20 minutes we can practice. I go, no, I'm not practicing. And he goes, what do you mean? You got to make sure it runs. I go, no. Because if I blow the thing up, all these people that came here I'm going to stand up and say, sorry, I can't ride it. So, didn't practice, got on it, and I went, and because some of the stuff Ray has built has been on the edge, I would say. And I took off, and I was going into turn one, and I turned around. And I was going to come back and tell him, it's not shifting, it won't shift. And then as on my way back to tell him that, I said, no, he'll have a heart attack, you know. So I turned around, and then I took off on the start line, and away we went.
And away we went.
Yeah, so it was fun, obviously. And it brought back a lot of memories of something that I had forgotten.
Now, one of the people who was there, and like the rest of us, was in complete awe of what it was that we had just seen, was Valentino Rossi. Now, there were all kinds of rumors floating around at the time that Valentino was going to ride that bike, or he was going to ride something. And that, never happened. And I was wondering if you ever talked to Valentino about that, and what was the plan, if you remember?
The plan was that I was going to do what I do, because no one knew what we were going to do, or what I was going to do. Valentino thought, it's just gas it up a little bit and wave to the crowd, like the Queen does, and then I was supposed to pull in, stop, and say, hey, Valentino, you want to ride the bike? And then he was supposed to get on and ride it. And after I did my laps, I pulled up, and Bob Sark comes around, Valentino. No. And I thought, Valentino's dead? No, he's not going to ride the bike. And I said, he's smarter than he looks.
One of the things...
And Valentino was it all. He went back to Italy, and they had the press conference at one of the races. He says that was the most fun. I knew he was going to die because he's going too fast. And it just picked it sideways, and the big article about it in the newspaper over there. So it made a big impression on him.
One of the things that you should know about the TZ750 engine is that its torque pretty much doubles at 92, 9300. So it's got this one personality that is, I won't call it soft and weak, but it isn't what it is above 9300. And the one thing you can't do is ride it through that point smoothly, because the engine hits pretty hard then. And Kenny told me at one point, I think we had lunch in Daytona once, and you were saying, I never liked that 750 all that much because it had too much of everything.
Like I said, it's a street bike. Really, I mean, the thing's got so much torque. You can ride it around on the street, no problem. When you want to go, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
And what I figured out at the race was the heat race, I got fourth, and I just couldn't quit. It wouldn't quit spinning. So I come in and I told Carruthers, hey, take 3 teeth off the back of that bike. I'm going to shift it. And he's, what? I'm going to shift it. So I had to do the semi. You had to win the semi to make the main event. And so I won the semi, shifting it, and it was geared for 145 miles an hour at 10,500 RPM. And I only got to see the tack a couple of times, and it was 11.5. And so I think it's going fast. And I come in, I told Skip Axton was my protege. I said, Skip, you got to shift it. Oh, no. He says, mine's working good. He made the main event. So I said, when I passed him, I was going, hey, told you to shift. Because I had to ride the semi, I'm on the third row of the start line. So I was last in the first corner. And yeah, it was a hell of a ride. I remember passing Mert Lawwell and Gary Scott. Gary Scott went for the pole, and I'm going sideways about 30 miles an hour faster into turn one. And Mert decides to go to the outside, and I just stopped breathing. At that point, I could not have turned it. Yeah. I'm committed. And Mert just went far enough outside, I split him, going sideways, up to the groove. Of course, they went around me. And I went by him so fast down the back straight. Well, Mert said it sucked the air out of his carburetor. and he remembers that like it was yesterday. He said, you just went, poof. And that's when I thought someone's going to get killed on these things.
And that's when you thought or said, they don't pay me.
Well, they don't pay me enough. They never did pay me enough, matter of fact.
Okay, so we're going to take a little tiny bit of a break here. It's me and Kevin and Kenny. It's free form. Does anybody out there? First off, was anybody at Indianapolis? Either of those two? Okay, Corey was there. George was there. Yes. So, yeah. Well, we're curious if anybody has any questions about anything. Mostly, we're going to talk about dirt track stuff. But go ahead.
Throttle on the thing?
You couldn't ride on the groove. It wouldn't hook up. And in them days, there were no race tires. So to make a groove was a lot harder than it is now because they have race rubber. And I'd had no rubber on my bike when I came in. I had a wire from the hay bales on it. And the reason that I won that race, as you can see the last lap, the reason that you didn't see a whole bunch of me in that race, Harley Davidson paid to film it. And they said, we don't want the yellow bike in that film. But because I got up to the lead, they had to show it. And so I was building a berm, is what I was doing. And if you look at the pictures, the last lap, I went in turn 3, way behind them guys, but I'm in a berm, and I actually came out of the corner. I go, God, I'm going to get second, and I grabbed the gear, and I flew by Springer, because about 4 laps to the end, they were playing, because Corky had power on Springer, so they were just playing. They knew they were way ahead, and they never saw me. But 3 laps to the end, Springer turned around and he went like this, which meant number 1, which I was.
Yeah.
Back there, and Corky said after the race, says, yeah, number 1, I'm gonna win, no problem. and I had no idea I was going to win that race. But when you see the film, it's just like I'm on a string because I had the dirt up against the hay bales.
So anybody else questions? Corey, do you have a question? Anybody else? Okay, I'd change gears for just a second. This is something that Kenny and I talked about yesterday, and it's a really fun story. We'd ridden our bikes from where the magazine was in Southern California up to San Jose. There was a mile, San Jose mile, and we took the whole magazine staff up there. And again, what we saw was another astonishing performance on the dirt from Mr. K. Roberts, involving him, his Yamaha, Gary Scott, his factory Harley-Davidson, and a somewhat surprising outcome. So I think if you could tell us that story, that'd be good.
You tell it. You know more about it than I do.
Okay, I'll fill in around the edges. We're sitting in the grandstands. Gary Scott's on this factory Harley-Davidson. It's hooked up nicely. And with 2 or 3 laps to go, we see Gary Scott's in the lead, and Kenny is on his little 750 Yamaha twin, and he's coming off the last corner, and he's accelerating up towards where Gary Scott is in the lead. And this goes on for the last couple or 3 laps until finally it's the white flag lap. Kenny comes off this corner. He's got Gary Scott dead to rights. The only time Kenny led that race was 20 feet before the finish line and 20 feet after the finish line. And so we were talking about this, and he was explaining what his strategy was and how he thought he could figure this all out. And if he will humor me, he will share that with you.
Well, his bike was geared a little tall and meant that about the start-finish line, it would be at the right RPM to go faster. So I couldn't have beat him if I'd have come off the corner ahead of him. But I could beat him to the start-finish line. But I couldn't show him that.
Right.
So I would pull up along just behind him, then I'd shut off and pull back in. And I'd pass him in the corner to let him know I'm there. And then down the straightaway, he'd pass me. So I never showed him I could pass him till the last lap, and I passed him.
Did you happen to talk to him afterwards?
I hardly talked to him at all. Most of the time we were talking about, getting in a fight.
Right.
So
something I've been curious about for a long time. Life on the road. Now there came a time when you're in the middle of your dirt track career, and suppose you got a race in some place like Topeka. It didn't have to be Topeka, it just could be someplace like Topeka. And the next weekend, you're at someplace like Altoona. Okay, so you finish your race in Topeka. Now, we don't have chartered jets back then. I know you do now, but back then you did not have your own personal jet. You guys were living in the backs of vans and trying to get lucky with the dealer's daughter and so forth.
that was a fun time.
Really, seriously, Kenny, what was it like, the down times, the time that you had to kill between this race here on Sunday and that race there on Sunday?
Going to different people's houses,
Yeah.
just bumming around. I had when Yamaha did all the yellow and black stuff, they took care of all the bikes. So I just had a little mini bike, and I remember having to do more, porting a cylinder out on to make it go a little faster in a KOA campground. That's where I hung out. So, because I didn't like flying, so I drove the races.
Wow.
And I knew, because Shell had a big motorhome, and he always stayed in the campground near the racetrack somewhere. So, yeah, it was a fun time. And it was easy, it was easy just getting your truck and go. Of course, running the Marlboro team, you got 45 employees at the track. It was complicated.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But it was a fun time. And yeah, I met a lot of Yamaha people and daughters. But I never did anything with them. I like to hang out with them.
Maybe Kevin can shed some light on this. You're running a basically bored out 650 vertical parallel twin Yamaha street bike. And you're running against these big V-twin 750cc Harleys. I've looked up some race results. On certain kinds of racetracks, you were just fine. Your bike was just fine. On certain other racetracks, it looked like it was a very tough sell to get the Yamaha towards the front. What was the main advantage that the Harleys had? Was it just that firing impulse traction thing, or was there more to it than that?
It's the size of the flywheel on the Harley Davidson that made it so good. On a TT where you could stop and go, I had no problem.
Right.
Short track, of course, you're on a different motorcycle, so the miles were the worst. Not only was it a little bit down on power, but it was down on traction.
Right.
And so the difference between the bigger flywheel and mine was when mine was going sideways, it was stopping. When the Harley goes sideways, it would keep going forward. So that was the biggest trouble. And all the little, like Louisville, I won every heat race, smoked them. But I'm lined up with 14 other Harley Davidsons for the main event, and there's a blue groove about that big. And the Yamaha wouldn't work on a groove. Yeah. You know, because of the flywheel, it was too little, so it would slow down too much going in, and it would spin too much coming out. So I'd always be on the outside. One time I was 5th in the main event, and I'm following the Harleys, and I don't follow well. And so out to the outside I went. I worked my way back to 13th. and I worked my way, when I got the groove cushion, I worked my way back up to 5th. And I remember pulling in, and Kel Carruthers is going, "Why do you do that?" "What? What? You were 5th. And why do you?" I said, "Well, that's what I do."
Yeah.
I can't change that.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I do.
So, Kevin, you're a technical guy. Do you got any inputs or additions to the idea of this fundamental difference between 650?
Well, the flywheel thing, of course, makes it harder for the engine to run away with the back tire. If the traction is marginal, if you're running at a pretty good rate, and there's a little slip, and the thing accelerates a little bit, a flywheel would limit the rate at which the back tire would spin up. Your 0W54, you said that thing was pretty short of flywheel. Once it gets spinning, it's awful hard to get it stopped.
That was LW 61, I believe.
Was it?
60.
Okay.
That Yamaha built the first V.
Yep, okay.
And
yep.
they put magnesium, little flywheels, but they put magnesium inserts in to bring the volume back up.
Yeah.
Because it cost a lot of money. And it was, and it's a funny story about that bike. It was the first V, and I saw it before it was ready to race. I saw the engine, because I have one of my buddies at Yamaha. And I said, "I want to race that bike." And they go, "No, that's next year's bike." "No, I want to race it." So at that time we had a square four, and the square four, I run the square four the first race I won in Argentina. I'm in a meeting at Yamaha with a head racing man. He was like a god at Yamaha, Mr. Hada. And I said, "Mr. Hada, I want to ride that bike." And he looked around, and all the engineers are, "Oh boy." And he said, how did he see that bike? "Oh, mistake." You know how they all, "Oh, mistake." And I said, I'll give you $100,000 off the top of my contract to ride that bike. And he
How
said,
about that?
"What?" And I said, I'll take $100,000 off of the contract to ride that bike. And he couldn't believe it. So he's talking in Japanese, and everybody's going, hi. And this went on for like 15 minutes. And he said, what he was telling them, if I take this deal and that bike isn't ready, all you guys are going to be looking for a job.
Yeah.
Worst bike I ever rode in my life. I think I won 1 or 2 races on it, and it would, because the first time they used the push-pull throttle, and a square body like an Electron, and I'd get it in the corner and oh, nothing, there it is, and I just aimed for the curb, and because the curb would stop it from spinning, and oh, it was awful. Yeah, it was awful.
Now, in dirt track, you have to remember that at different times and under different rules, people have filled the back tire with water. They have run steel rims with weights inside bolted to it, because if you can't increase the flywheel on your engine because the crankcase doesn't have any room for it, you're going to increase the flywheel effect wherever you can. And they've made some bikes with some really heavy rear wheels for that same purpose. So anything to moderate the rate at which the rear tire is getting away from the dirt.
Yeah, well, we tried putting water in the tube, but we didn't get it all the way filled, so it was it didn't work very well. And then we put lead in the swing arm because the swing arm was square, and you could not hit a bump with it, so that didn't work. It was no better. The only thing I did do that we put 15 pounds of lead weight under the seat, and on a little tiny groove, it would work. Yeah, but it was slow. It was 15 pounds more. It didn't help, and it didn't like bumps. So yeah, it was interesting. I never tried a really heavy wheel though. My brain power ran out at that point.
So, in the good old days of dirt track racing, especially around places like Ascot, and you were great at Ascot. I want to ask you a couple of questions about that later, but the legends of Ascot, a lot of it had to do with how people dealt with tires. Ascot is no longer there, but it was sort of, if you're a serious dirt track racer, you get your diploma if you can survive Ascot. It's a half-mile bull ring in California, and the legends were that so much of it depended on the atmosphere coming off the Pacific Ocean and how much moisture was there, because the traction at Ascot Park was a little bit different than any other dirt track in the United States. And some of the tuners back then resorted to some weird stuff, like they would soak tires in things like formaldehyde, and they would take tires and put them up on the roof of the shop and let them bake in the sun for long periods of time.
Don't forget the pizza oven. That was another one.
You have to bring me up to speed on the pizza oven.
Well, it's just a natural thing. If you didn't have a rooftop, you'd find some place where there was a pizza oven that would let you put a tire in there, because it's shaped like a great big old pizza. We'll just run it through there, and it'll be heat treated. Presto.
Did you guys resort to any of that foolishness? Well, I'm sure you did.
There was one guy that, and because we were factory Yamaha, we always got the right people. He made the tires, and we would buy them from him. And he had a little gauge. Oh, this one's too hard. Oh, this one. Okay, this one's just right. And so that's what we did. Just take it, put it on. Because if they were too hard, they'd chunk the tire.
Yeah.
So it had to be right in the right range.
So did you find, I mean, I watched you at Ascot. I watched Aldana at Ascot. I've watched a lot of people at Ascot. It is a ferocious place. Did you, I mean, you handle it really well, but did you find you had to use a different technique there than any other like dirt track half mile?
No, you just had a lot more grip.
Yeah.
So the Yamaha, one of the problems with the Yamaha, the motor's a little wide. And you could, when I'd really flick it into the corner, it would just be on the crankcase.
Yeah.
So the wheels wouldn't be on the ground until I stop, and then I'd go. And I remember Wayne Rainey and Eddie Lawson. We're standing on the number 4 corner, just going in, and I come first lap of practice, and I came into that corner, and both wheels were off the ground, and I'm sliding up toward them. Wheel hit the ground, the gas was on it, and they both looked at each other and go, I can't, I could never do that. I can't do that. And that's kind of funny after all these years. But the 8 Mile National, if you could win the 8 Mile, you were the king of dirt track.
Yeah.
So when I raced Agostini in Daytona, I was faster.
But your bike overheated.
But I had to slow down because it broke the, remember the head stud?
Yes,
And
the
water
blue
was coming
bolts.
out, and it was going to the red on my temperature gauge, and I had to finish because I had to get points. So Ago passed me and he won. And that really pissed me off. And,
I remember.
And I said, well, he didn't really win. What did I say? He didn't really win. I just got second. I didn't really lose. I just got second. And of course, there's 15 Italian journalists there. You know, what do you think Agostini? Agostini's so fantastic. I said, well, I've never seen him at the 8 Mile.
Right.
And oh God, what is the 8 Mile? I said, you got to, if you got the cojones, you got to be at the 8 Mile. And oh boy, when I got to Italy to race Imola the first time that year, I was met by this group, and they're all journalists. Why you say he know? And Kel Carruthers actually locked my arms and dragged me away, because I was going to kill 2 or 3 of them guys. And yeah, and the Italian people love me. I don't know why. I have no idea.
The reason, I think the reason was that you were almost singular in your willingness to adopt to living and spending time and enjoying being in Europe. Pretty easy to fill your motorhome full of movies and just isolate yourself. But you were over there for a lot of years. I know that when you left Italy, you said that it felt like your second home, that Italy was your second home. You were quite beloved in Italy. They adored Kenny Roberts.
Yeah, I remember winning a race at Imola. Ago got 3rd or 4th, whatever it was, and the crowd, of course, is after the race they all come to the pit, and they have little ropes, and they would never, go around that rope, and I thought that was cool, and this big guy, I could see him coming through the crowd, and he had a little girl or a little boy on top of his, and he's going through the crowd like this, and Ago's next to me, and he's hot. He's like, man, tough race. And I'm looking at, and I see this little kid, and he comes up to the thing with his dad, and he goes, Ago. and I'm looking at Ago, just, oh. And I felt so sorry for him. It's like, oh, Ago. So, yeah, it was first night in Italy, I rolled the rent-a-car upside down in the canal. And
There's a lot of cars in that canal.
Barry Sheen and Gene Romero.
Yep.
So it was kind of funny because I thought it was a lake, because we were hammered. They introduced me to red wine, and that was wrong. And so
That was wrong.
And we're upside down. I said, don't panic. What happened was Barry Sheen kept putting the emergency brake on. And it was a little Fiat car, and it's over revving. And I said, dummy, that won't work unless you push the clutch in. I said, I pushed the now try it. Upside down in the canal. So I'm in, okay, don't panic, open the door and swim out. So open the door, because I'm on the roof now, I'm opening the door, and it's against the bank. And water starts really coming in then. And so, okay, go under the seat. It's a lot of confusion, as you can imagine. Go under the seat and open the back door. Well, dummy, it was the same door, same side, so it won't open. So I went into the front again. I'll kick the window out. So I'm trying to kick this window out. That's full of water. Now it's full of, the water's here. So I said, well, this is the way I always wanted to know how it's going to go. And this is it. And I'm just sitting there, calm. I didn't get upset or nothing. I'm just, well, God, I wondered how I was going to go. Then I hear pounding on, Kenny, Kenny. Oh, well, the water would have never, I'd have been there for 2 days. The water would have never got above my neck. So Gene opened the front door and pulled me out. And we're all hugging each other. And, oh, yeah, we made it. Walked back to the hotel soaking wet. That was interesting. So and that was in the pictures and everything in the next day in the paper.
That's part of the nature of red wine.
I remember the Hertz guy said, asked the racing manager, it was the racing manager of Europe's car I borrowed, and he didn't think that was funny. He hated Barry Sheen, so yeah, it was fun.
Was it, speaking of great adventures with rental cars, I know that a number of guys, certainly not you, were embargoed from renting cars at Daytona. And I think it was Ron Grant who came up with the idea of going to a used car lot and simply buying a car. And so...
Yeah, I rode in that car. I was 18 years old.
And so the thing was that we would do whatever it was that we'd come to do at Daytona, drive this car to the airport, and just park it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a Buick Hi-Fin, I don't know what they were, like 55 or something. And
58.
They took a big sponge and they put white paint and put white polka dots all over it, and that was their car. And it didn't last long either.
Yeah, but it was a great idea. When you need some transportation. Did you must have gotten to, I remember there was a time, because I remember doing a story about it. I think it was the year after you lost to Agostini. You came back to Daytona and you lapped the field once. You lapped 75% of the field 2 or 3 times. It must have been a racetrack, even though you're pretty well compressed running around the high banks on the big Yamaha, but it must have been a track that appealed to you, at least the technical part of it.
Well, it was all about stopping and accelerating.
Right.
And was my strong point. Big corners, I was okay, probably as good as anybody, but stopping and going was right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And especially when I started dragging the knee, then that made all the little low gear corners and stuff a lot better. So it was just an easy racetrack, but it was also a little more difficult to go fast as well.
Yeah.
And especially with the tires in them days, they weren't made for 200 miles. So
there were a lot of people that were sort of spooked by turn 3.
Yeah, turn 3, it was like if you didn't hit the apex properly, you weren't gonna make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you weren't in that slot, and a lot of times lapping guys, you couldn't get to that slot.
Well, this was an example of the kind of corner. He sometimes speaks in aphorisms. He said, rather opaquely, ride slow corners slow and ride fast corners fast. Well, duh. But no, it's more subtle than that. Because when he said ride slow corners slow, he meant don't push in slow corners because that's where all the slow people push. Just cool it and don't get in a tangle with those third level riders. Ride fast corners fast means here is a possibility of a big advantage because there's so many people that when they see the needle on this side of the tack and they know they're in an upper gear, they're just rrr. So it acts like a filter. It lets the fast guys through and it stops the slow guys. Ride slow
I think
corners
that's Daytona.
Yeah.
So,
And turn one was pretty complicated.
yeah.
You know, getting
We
into
just
turn
talked
one.
about that. Turn one.
So when we tested people say it was an OW68 or the it was actually a 700 Yamaha square 4. And finish testing tires, finish line, it was going sideways. And so I pulled in and I said, the thing's going sideways on the banking. And Kel looks at me and goes, well, what do you want us to do? No, you don't understand. It's going sideways to start finish line. Yeah.
Well, you're putting out. You're
Yeah.
going a good
He
clip.
goes, you can slow down. So he was about as warm as a, ice cream bar working with him. But Eddie pulls in right then. He goes, the bike's doing something funny when I shut off for turn one. I said, you idiot, it's going sideways. Oh, really? Yeah. And it would, because the thing had so much power that the arrow didn't work at 200 over 200 mile an hour. It would actually start spinning the wheel
Yeah.
because it wasn't going to go any faster because of the wind. And so that was interesting, doing 200 mile an hour sideways on the banking.
And the result of that was the 22 millimeter restrictors.
In the race, it wasn't so much of a problem because you had a full tank of fuel, and you knew it was going to go sideways anyway. So, the race, it wasn't a problem, but boy, when you're testing.
Yeah.
So anyhow, as I said in a little speech I made last night, we are in the company of the greatest motorcycle racer who ever lived. This is, in my view, completely inarguable. And what we've heard today is some references to why I think that. It's not just road racing success in this country or road racing success in Europe or world championships in Europe. It all has to do with what he talked about, the 8 Mile at Ascot. It has to do with Sacramento and Indianapolis and San Jose and all these dirt track bull rings where he made his reputation and learned his business. So we're going to wrap it up here. The greatest motorcycle racer who ever lived. Big hand for Kenny.
Thank you. Most of it was fun. Thank you.